Live from Southwest Florida's news leader, this is Wink News at 5.
I left the kitchen, went in the den, grabbed my 89-year-old mother, put her on the floor, laid on top of her.
I mean, I could feel debris going, hitting the sides of my legs and my arms and stuff, and I just sat there, with my legs balled up, fetal position.
First on Wake News at 5, people are still in disbelief. An EF2 tornado tore through southwest Cape Coral Saturday night, overturned cars, fences, pieces of homes still littering the streets. That's near Beach Parkway and Chiquita Boulevard. But tonight, after the storm, cleanup is well underway in Southwest Florida's largest city.
And as people begin to rebuild, we're hearing incredible stories of survival and support. Wink News is covering the aftermath of the Cape Coral tornado unlike any other station in Southwest Florida. This is a view from above the destruction. The National Weather Service says Saturday's twister was an EF2 and had a peak wind of 132 miles an hour.
It was on the ground for 3.4 miles and it was 182 yards wide. That's almost 2 football fields. The Weather Service says the tornado damaged 178 structures. Cape Police say estimates put total damage at $6.5 million. Now the good news, only 3 people had minor injuries and no one died. Wake News has complete team coverage of this rare tornado. Chief Meteorologist Jim Farrell will analyze the storm's path and destruction. Wake News reporter Adam Wright is one of many reporters talking to people who are putting their lives back together.
But we begin at 5 with Wink News anchor Chris Safadi, who's leading our live coverage. And Chris, you were out there last night. Have things changed since then?
Yeah, things have changed a lot, Bob. In fact, things have changed a lot in the last hour. It's the end of the workday here. Time to go home, except for the folks in this part of Cape Coral. There's no real home to come home to. We're kind of at the end of what I would call phase 1, the emergency assessment and fixing whatever you can quickly. The tarps and the boards. This house right here behind me is boarded up. It is a complete loss. It will have to be torn down. We're going to tell you an incredible survival story about what happened in the house during the tornado here in about 5 minutes. Right next to it, you can see, and I'll get completely out of the way, a boat overturned that was in this driveway. These folks in this White House next door, they were in St. Louis over the weekend. They're coming home today to see what's happened to their house. It is unlivable right now. And then as we go down the street and we see a truck go by, these guys have been boarding up houses on this street since we've been here. All the blue tarps down there, all the trees down. There is a lot of damage here. Let's take you live. We have a drone flying live right now over all of this, and you can kind of get a sense of the pattern of the damage in this neighborhood. Some parts of the street hit much harder than others. Some houses spared entirely, but on this south side of Beach Parkway here west of Agua Linda, this is one of the worst hit areas that we've seen. There'll be a lot of work to finish up here. Cape Coral, though, as a whole, the damaged areas, as they said, 178 houses damaged. A lot of people without power this time last night. Things are starting to get better, but slowly in some cases. Wake News reporter Adam Wright is covering that part of the story.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. The latest update we got is that just over 150 customers still without power here. That's up from that's down from about 200 when the day began. And LCEC says their crews will continue working until the last customer gets their power restored. Now, we're on Southwest 17th Place, and take a look over here. I want to show you this. This is just one example of the damage that's still visible in the neighborhoods out here. This huge tree snapped right at the base. And take a look over here to the right. You can see it fell on the roof of this house and is completely covering the entire front of this home here. Luckily, nobody inside seriously hurt. And this is just one small example of the millions of dollars estimated in damage citywide.
It was a beautiful night 2 days ago.
This is what's left of Mark Polly's home of 10 years. His wife, Vicky, was home when the tornado came barreling through the neighborhood Saturday evening.
It just sounded like a huge freight train, scritching on metal coming through. I mean, I could feel debris going, hitting the sides of my legs and my arms and stuff. It was horrible.
Inside, a sign of just how lucky they really were. So this is your daughter's room?
Yes, the tornado came through, exploded the window. The ceiling is gone. She was at the neighbor's house 2 doors down.
But your daughter could have been here when this happened.
Yeah, she could have been, and thank God she wasn't.
The damage elsewhere, extensive and widespread. Throughout Monday, crews worked to clear debris and restore power to those still in the dark. Using the Soaring Sky drone, Wink News has been able to give you the clearest view from above of the devastation brought to hundreds of homes in the Southwest Cape area. What's it like seeing it in this condition?
Nah, not good. Not good at all. You know, I feel kind of like, you know, I'm glad to be alive.
Many people we've talked to today said they're still waiting on estimates of the damage of their homes. Many estimate themselves that it's in the tens of thousands of dollars, and many anticipate it taking months to get back to normal. Live in Cape Coral, Adam Wright, Wink News, now.
Thank you very much, Adam. Wink News is the Weather Authority. I'm here with Chief Meteorologist Jim Farrell. And Jim, you were live in the destruction zone last night, and you told us then that this is a very rare event for Southwest Florida.
I've been on duty here many years with you for about 33 years. This is the second strongest tornado I have ever seen in my tenure here in Southwest Florida. And let's review that drone video once again. So this was an unusual event to have a tornado not only that strong, but to stay on the ground that long. It was on the ground for over 3 miles, and as we analyze the damage video that you're looking at now on your TV screen, here's what we see. There's some very severe damage, then some moderate damage following the path of the tornado. In other words, the damage was not consistent, and there's a reason for that. Talking with the National Weather Service storm coordinators and just looking at the damage itself on this video, here's what we think happened. It was on the ground, it stayed on the ground for over 3 miles, but it pulsed. There was a pulsing to the intensity of the tornado. In other words, it got strong up to 132 miles per hour, and then perhaps a house or two later, it was not quite as strong. So with that pulsing in mind, that's why there was some great damage followed by some moderate damage, followed by some great damage. We'll get back to Chris now to get a recap of what it looks like now out on scene, but that would explain why the damage was erratic and not consistently devastating in the path of the tornado.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. And then also how ferocious the winds were would explain that boat that's between these two houses here that we're going to tell you more about in a second. But the survival stories are incredible. This house that's on the left of your screen here, there's an incredible story about how 2 people survived this inside there. My colleague Carolyn Brewster is here with that.
That's right. I talked to the man who lives inside that home. He takes care of his 89-year-old elderly mother. He actually had to lay on top of his mother to keep her safe, all while that tornado was carrying his truck and the boat across the house, on top of it and behind it. Let's take a listen to his story.
Pulled my 89-year-old mother out of her chair into the floor, laid across the top of her, and it was like it got so loud you couldn't hear yourself think, and then just explosions and bright flashes of light, and you know, it was just like a war zone.
Dave Hawk telling us about the terrifying moments as the tornado ripped through his home.
When I was getting my mom out of the chair, I had a thought, I hope we make it, okay? You know, and then it just, you know, it was like 45 seconds of mayhem. And then, you know, it's like, okay, I'm okay, she's okay, you know, all right, we did this.
The room he and his mother took shelter in was one of only 2 areas undamaged on the entire property. The rest destroyed. And the worst of the damage Dave hadn't even seen yet.
And, you know, I looked at my driveway, and then I walked over there and wait a minute. Where's my truck? Where'd I park my truck?
It's believed the truck flew up, went over the house, into the backyard, and ended up underneath his boat. He says this damage isn't nearly as bad as it looked even just yesterday. Since then, crews and local business owners have been coming out to help.
And it's like, wow, you know, the community kind of pulls together. You know, I mean, we feel good about it, but I'll rebuild, I'll be fine, you know. Probably the worst thing that's ever happened, but I survived.
And that's what's important, is that they did survive. His mother left with just a minor scratch on her after all of that. And if you take a look at his house, you can see it's all boarded up. It is going to be condemned. Now, luckily, he is staying with family.
And we'll take you a live look too at the boat, a closer look. We have another camera on the other side. Remember, this boat was attached to a pickup truck. Both of them went over that house in this storm. Well, that man was protecting his mother inside. Those are going to be hauled away pretty soon. But back out live here on this street, there's a lot of folks now who have a lot of cleanup to do, and most of them will be able to get back into their homes, but not necessarily these. The damage was also bad on Pine Island as well. We have a crew there. Wink News reporter Megan Contreras is on Pine Island.
Well, it was something of a disaster, never having been in one, of course.
Pine Island Cove resident Richard Nadeau describes Saturday's storm as loud, powerful, and frightening.
The speed of it was incredible. It came and left in a matter of maybe 10 minutes.
His house on Catfish Court was hit the hardest by the same storm system that caused this destruction in Cape Coral.
It was very noisy and very wet, and more lightning than I certainly have ever experienced in my entire life.
The strong winds tore apart his lanai, leaving behind a mangled mess.
I think if the storm actually would have moved over, let's say another 60 or 70 feet, the tornado, we may have been sleeping under the stars. But as it is, it's primarily the lanai and the framework of the lanai.
Despite the damage to his home, Nadeau is in good spirits. He says his neighbors have been very gracious. There is no shortage of help. Wink News cameras were there as one neighbor helped him sort through the debris.
There's plenty of help around, so that's the Pine Island spirit pretty much.
Nadeau says this is a storm that will be talked about for years.
Oh, it will. They're still talking about Charlie, and that was 10 or 12 years ago. So absolutely. I mean, there must have been 100 cars by the house.
Reporting on Pine Island, Megan Contreras, Wink News Now.
Megan, thank you. Back over Cape Coral today as the cleanup moves into its next phase, the long-term recovery phase. We'll be watching that very closely. And coming up on Wink News at 5:30, so many people around here have come out to help. We've seen people just bring food and coffee and water to workers and residents. We're going to tell you about some of the unsung heroes that are really helping out in these neighborhoods coming up at 5:30.
Very heartwarming. All right, thank you very much, Chris. Wink News has been covering every angle of Saturday's tornado since the warning was issued. Our extensive coverage continues on winknews.com. There you will find a detailed description of the damage, the cleanup effort, and how you can help. We also have a photo gallery and more of the drone video of the damage. We're also posting updates on the Wink News Facebook page.
And remember, the Wink News weather app's a critical tool to have on your cell phone. When a storm watch or warnings issued for your area, we'll send an alert directly to your phone to keep you and your family safe. You can also track live radar and get the 7-day forecast. Just search Wink Weather in the App Store.
Live from Southwest Florida's news leader, this is Wink News.
First in this half hour, Wink News is live over the tornado destruction in Southwest Cape Coral. Cleanup's well underway, but it's going to take a long time.
Early estimates put structural damage at $6.5 million. There are a lot of people ready and willing to help the tornado victims with that process. Wink News anchor Chris Safadi is leading our live team coverage from Cape Coral. And Chris, you've been there for 2 days now. What kind of volunteers have you seen?
Well, we've seen a lot of volunteers. I'll tell you about them in a second, but we've just learned the Cape Coral City Council has approved $1.2 million for cleanup along the streets. We have live drone pictures we want to show you. We've been focusing so much on the people and their houses and the $6.5 million that you just mentioned damage to structures. There is a lot of debris starting to pile up on the streets. Horticultural debris, people are hauling damaged items out of their house that need to be hauled away. So just in the last few minutes, the city of Cape Coral approving $1.2 million to help haul away the debris and damaged items. Now, as Lois was talking about, there are so many people volunteering to help. We saw last night a family drive up with 5 pizzas and just start going down the street handing out pizzas. We saw another family set up over on Chiquita Boulevard. They just pulled out a grill and a cooler and barbecued for everybody in the neighborhood. All kinds of people doing great things. Wink News reporter Ashley Edlin has some of their stories.
Susan Bennett is gathering donations for her neighbors. Some are left with almost nothing after the tornado hit their home Saturday.
Clothes, toys, books, movies, garbage bags, boxes.
Bennett lives off Beach and Aqua Linda in Cape Coral, an area hit hard by the storm. But Bennett says her home is going to recover. Some of her neighbors aren't so lucky.
5 doors from me is real devastation. The neighbor that had the truck with the boat that was sitting on top of it, and you know, he has nothing left of his home at all. And so I really felt like I was really blessed that we were saved.
The Red Cross has been in neighborhoods since Saturday, handing out supplies.
We have our Red Cross emergency response vehicle going through the neighborhood distributing food. We also have a Red Cross van that's distributing supplies like tarps and cleanup kits.
And this couple handing out pizzas on Southwest 16th Place wants to make sure no one goes without food.
This is our way of helping out those who need help or just giving to the workers.
It's just the neighbor thing to do.
In Cape Coral, Ashley Edlin, Wink News, now.
And back live in Cape Coral, we're seeing on this block, on this house that was very badly damaged. The folks were out of town when it happened. They just got back into town to assess, and the insurance adjuster just showed up. We have live pictures of him on the roof trying to figure out what it will take to repair that house. And we were talking to people over there casually before. They think that house can be repaired as opposed to the one next door that will have to be completely rebuilt. But folks here will need a lot of help, a lot of construction help, and a lot of honest help. Coming up on Wink News at 6, we'll talk about how hard it is to find that and what you can do to protect yourself just ahead at 6.